So ChatGPT just became the Earth's biggest classroom. 250 million learning chats a day, outside campus control. This isn't cheating anymore, it's a power shift. Platforms claim data, set rules, and they call it democratization. We're about to map the scale, decode the Empire playbook, and perhaps show how to regain agency, data, labor, infrastructure, before it's too late.
OpenAI have just released a study that shows that ChatGPT has quietly become the world's largest educational institution, the world's biggest school. 250 million educational conversations happening daily on the platform and completely outside of traditional institutional control. This isn't just about students cheating anymore. It's about what happens when empire building meets education paralysis. Dale, what do you think about that scale? 250 million daily conversations? Does that put university enrollments in perspective for you, or what?
It's big numbers, but it kind of reminds me when YouTube first blew up, or when it's blowing up now, and the number one search term was just how. So how to fix something, how to cook something, how to play something. So ChatGPT for me feels like that, but I guess at a different scale. And let's be honest, Nick, asking how and getting an answer isn't the same as learning it or mastering it. That's where universities and education institutions really still matter. We've probably been here before with MOOCs, millions of signups, but very few actual completions. I hate to think the amount of courses that I've signed up to. I've often waxed lyrical about me doing Hello World in Python, React, insert language here. But let's be honest, spending a couple hours with ChatGPT doesn't make you a doctor, an engineer, or even close to it. Sure, it gives you access to the information, but that's just access. And education is what makes a difference between exposure to information and expertise or mastery. That's where I stand at the moment.
Spot on. Karen Howell, who listeners may have heard of recently in the context of her book, Empire of AI. She has spent years as a tech journalist covering AI developments before they were cool. But this book that's doing the rounds at the moment isn't just about technology, it's about power. The framing that Karen offers is around resource claiming, is around exploitation, is around competitive empire building, is around sacrifice zones. Her contention is that the AI giants, the labs that we speak about on this podcast, are operating exactly like historical empires. So they claim resources that aren't theirs. And in a higher education context, this might be student work, research outputs, institutional knowledge, and redesign rules to legitimize it as fair use for training. They exploit labor by threatening faculty displacement while promising to democratize education as their civilizing mission. It's competitive empire building, with each company framing itself as the good empire that must defeat the bad empires, justifying aggressive expansion. The sacrifice zones, though, are real. You mentioned the training data earlier on in this piece. So there are the workers, predominantly in the global south, traumatized by cleaning toxic content from ChatGPT. Communities losing water and energy to data centers. But at the same time, HAL offers resistance strategies. So controlling the supply chains that these companies depend on in the form of data, labor, infrastructure. Dale, that empire analogy, is that too dramatic to your mind, or does it actually capture what's happening here?
I just finished Karen's book, and while I was reading it, I was using AI less, and the wonder was kind of gone there because I kind of, where it's coming from. But I did really wonder, again, is this an AI problem? Or is it a horrendous mirror to the human condition, to the Western powers we see quite a lot of at the moment? Yes, the outcomes that we're seeing are AI, but the dynamics you describe, so like hyperscalers concentrating power, a finger on the scale of what's probably acceptable here, those have been shaping technology and industry for a long time. It's not since 2021, since we've all been focused very much on, let's be honest, ChatGPT started this off, that there's been a bit of focus and a labeling of this being about AI. It feels a bit like the oil industry. So there's a rush to extract as much as you can, as fast as you can, no matter the cost, just so you can secure your own future. In this case, it's the oil company securing their own future here. It may look like a rocket out of here, or at least a bunker in New Zealand, which is often spoken about within this book. But for me, I think that empire framing skips over the amplifier effect here. We don't get the last 100 years of growth without petroleum products, without fossil fuels. And in the same way, despite the real harm that Karen documents, there's going to be extraordinary things that come from AI. So it's both at the moment. The exploitation is real, but so is the potential.
So I want to shout out to any billionaires watching. If you need a sponsor for a bunker in New Zealand, I am here. Yeah, there is a...
Bunkers.com? Yep.
High premium on that, but that service is available. Meanwhile, Jason Lodge, educational psychologist at University of Queensland and frequent mention on this podcast, has diagnosed exactly why higher education couldn't mount an effective response. He speaks to three disconnected conversations. So research evidence, policy assumptions, and classroom practice operating effectively in parallel. Researchers know that AI detectors don't work and that AI literacy courses aren't sufficient. But policymakers are busy building strategies on these debunked assumptions anyway. EdTech companies, these empires that Hal refers to, they exploit this gap ruthlessly, making unsubstantiated personalization claims that sound exactly like administrators want to hear. As we've covered before on this podcast, universities face genuine wicked problems, so trade-offs between speed and academic integrity, where every solution creates new problems, but then the conversation's never aligned. So you've seen this coordination problem in other sectors. I mean, is this just how large institutions respond to rapid change problem, or is this particular to HE?
Oh, I get so frustrated about this particular issue. And universities are giant organizations, but I'm seeing inconsistent responses that are led from like the IT back office or the finance spreadsheet. And if you start from the wrong place, if you don't start from the core business or the core customer, which is often our students here, let's be honest, you're never going to get genuine cross-institutional response and genuine purpose. There's a really good Harvard Business Review piece on how major organizational change, particularly around AI, shouldn't be led from a lone C-suite operative, but from a collection of domain experts who represent each area of the business and have that conversation together. So that's how you bridge perspectives. That's how you avoid blind spots. And yet in higher education, we've got this incredible range of minds. You've got researchers, teachers, policy people, technologists, but they don't actually talk to each other enough. And let's be honest, when they do, they don't often understand what each other is saying or needing. So you get tribalism, you get restrictive practices, or you get mandatory compliance modules. Again, not great. It's like designing a product entirely out of the marketing department without ever involving the people who actually know the customer. You'd never get it right. And in education, if your grand motherhood statements that you've got on whatever documents you're pushing around don't say things about education, don't say things about learning, don't say things about teaching, student, or educators, then you've lost the plot from the start.
Maybe this represents what Hal was talking about here. Into this gap comes the empire, right? I mean, take the OpenAI usage explosion. Maybe this represents educational displacement happening where institutions couldn't serve existing needs, where, as you say, one office is not talking to another, a spreadsheet runs everything, right? Students didn't wait for research policy practice alignment. They developed their own solutions. Just under half are asking rather than doing, accidentally aligning on the way with what research suggests work best. And this reveals both institutional lag and real gaps in global access, especially in the global south, where human tutoring goes at an utterly unaffordable premium, but AI tutoring fills those voids that traditional education has never reached. Higher education's disconnected conversations have created a vacuum that the empire building of OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, and beyond, that they've filled. The question, I guess, now is, can institutions learn from Hal's resistance framework, controlling supply chains, coordinating responses, and fix their coordination problems before losing more educational agency to private platforms optimized for engagement rather than learning outcomes? Those 250 million daily conversations aren't going away, but who controls them and for whose benefit remains an open question.
And I will go with one more lens here of using AI thoughtfully. I am voting with my feet here. I'm choosing to not use it for this task and use it for that task and consider where the output's coming from and what it's trained on. I think that is a role that education institutions play, is encouraging students to critically engage with AI, not just use it for user's sake. Well, listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, please leave us a review, share around within your network, and most of all, hit subscribe on whatever platform you're at. For those watching on YouTube, we're on all your podcast platforms. For those who would like to see our faces, you can find us on YouTube too. We'd love to tell you what's on next week's episode, but it's a world that moves way too fast. You'll just have to tune in. Until then, stay curious, stay intelligent, stay the human in the loop.